where are we then, from what you can tell us about the prospects of an invasion of Gaza?
So we are now day 10 since the brutal massacre of families and children and women in the south of Israel, and the abduction of over 120 people into Gaza, and still many unaccounted for. Over the course of the last 10 days, we've obviously mobilized extensive activities on the ground, in the air, in order to make sure that the south of Israel is safe. And I can say that even yesterday, we still had engagements with terrorists adjacent to the security fence, adjacent to the barrier. So it is something that continues to be a challenge, even 10 days after the ruthless attack. And indeed, we are conducting our strikes against Hamas, its infrastructure. The goal, as the previous speaker in your interviewee just said, is to demolish, destroy Hamas's capability as a government, as a terrorist organization. They've subordinated basically all of the institutions of government for terrorism. And this is why they have to be removed once and for all. And what we're doing is striking their leaders, striking the infrastructure itself, taking out operational capabilities such as drones, such as rockets, tunnels that they've used to try and conduct attacks. And of course, the individuals themselves, the terrorists themselves, so Hamas commanders that are definitely in our scopes. And we have killed several of those that were involved directly in attacking the communities based on the intelligence and exposure they gave, and some of them that they gave themselves as they paraded and celebrated with their social media.
Yeah.
Regarding your question, okay, where are we going now? And I think that's definitely a relevant question. We're currently in day 4 of mass evacuation of people from the north, because that is the hub, and specifically Gaza City is the hub and fortress of Hamas, where they have established all of their institutions, and that is where they control and command the attacks from. And indeed, we are recruiting extensively reservists. We have some 300,000 reservists that have been called up, preparing the ground assault if there is an instruction to actually go on the ground and mobilize. So we are currently still striking from the air, utilizing artillery, conducting limited raids across the border area in order to find more bodies of people that are still missing, and indeed continue our operations to destroy Hamas's capability, to never ever let them be a staging ground for brutal attacks against Israel.
And the question will be, what will be the cost of you doing so? There'll be a cost to Israeli soldiers, of course, which you'll bear in mind, but how do you weigh up the cost to civilian life in Gaza? Is your view that this mass evacuation that you've talked about, people moving south, does that mean that most people left in the north are complicit? Are they fair game if you go in? What does it mean when you've ordered this evacuation? If people stay in the north, are they fair game if you go in on the ground?
No, of course not. The IDF operates within the realm of the laws of armed conflict and international humanitarian law, and the move is a humanitarian measure to remove the people from harm's way. While we root out Hamas, and while Hamas continuously tries to prevent that from happening.
But you do concede the point.
Those that say, obviously, we're doing everything in order to try and minimize civilian casualties, while Hamas is trying to maximize their own civilian casualties because they have no regard for human life.
I understand, but what does that mean? But what does it mean in practice? What does it mean in practice, Peter? I absolutely accept your word on that. But what does it mean in practice? You're going into very built-up areas with lots of people, some of whom won't be able to move. You'll refer to things like collateral damage. I wonder what that means. What is an acceptable amount of collateral damage when you are pursuing your military ends?
The loss of any innocent life troubles us. This is something that we are trying, and we've developed weapons in order to limit civilian casualties, including forewarning, small-grade munitions to warn people to evacuate buildings. We send text messages. We dropped leaflets from the sky in order to announce that we're coming. And when you announce that you're coming, what you're actually doing is setting yourself up for ambush by the enemy. But when you ask how does it actually work? So I think there are three core components that we need to be talking about. There's a distinction between civilians, non-combatants, and Hamas terrorists. The military necessity to achieve our military goals, so destroying Hamas and their capability, and of course proportionality in warfare. So and we need to obviously talk that proportionality isn't a numbers issue, but it's actually the combination of the military necessity weighed up against the civilian cost that it may cause. So while I would definitely not put a number, we will do our best to limit civilian casualties, and that is why I'm actually quite happy to see that people are adhering to our call to move south, and we know of several hundreds of thousands of people that have listened to us because they realize that this time Hamas, when they broke into our bedrooms and abducted people and butchered people, they broke the rules of the game. That means that we now need to change the game. Hamas can no longer operate from a safe haven in Gaza and expect to govern.
But as people move south, Peter, they'll go to a city like Khan Yunis. Is it not just more plausible that Hamas will hide themselves there, so that as the civilians go south, so will Hamas? So you're going to be fighting Hamas in the south as well.
So we will continue our operations, and indeed, of course there are questions about this, but in order to be effective in dismantling Hamas's capabilities, the distinction is necessary. The military operation is, as a goal, is there, and the proportionality of that warfare.
And that will include the south as well. That will include the south.
The south, even the south is a safer area. Hamas are going to be pursued. They started this war. We intend on winning it, and we will win it. Okay. But this is the challenge of they called me up for reserve duty. I never ever thought I would have to wear a uniform again and speak on behalf of the military. I retired 5 years ago. Yeah. But the change, the tectonic change that is happening today in removing Hamas because of what they did is something that is extremely close to every Israeli.